Welcome to this AutoPIPE intermediate training for modeling jacketed piping. In this series of videos, we will walk through a workbook example of modeling jacketed piping. In AutoPIPE, I'll click Open. I'll navigate to the jacketed piping dataset, and I'll open my jacketed piping model. In this model, we are looking at our carrier piping, and we will be making a copy of this carrier piping to create our jacket piping. So I will select point C12 as my active point. I'll hold down Shift on my keyboard and click on C2 to select the range between C12 and C2. I want to add in this small section of the branch line as well. So I'll now hold Control on my keyboard and select point B4. You can always zoom if necessary. And then again, I'll hold Shift down on my keyboard and select the middle of the T point, which is point B16. And you see the section of piping that is now selected. I want to copy this selection, so I can come up to my Home ribbon tab on the clipboard grouping and select Copy. And in the command line on the bottom left corner, it asks me to select a base point. I want that base point to be B4, so I can either click on it in the piping model, or I can just type it in to the command line. Once I see B4 down in the command line, I can click OK. The piping will turn back to the gray color, and that means that this copied selection is stored to be used at a later time. Right now we will paste that. So we want B4 to be our active point, our selected point. You can see that active point in the bottom right corner in the status bar. And I will come back up to the Home ribbon tab. Under the clipboard grouping, I will select Paste. Keep in mind that Control-C and Control-P also work here. This opens the Paste dialog where I will connect to the selected point, but I do want to check on to apply an offset from the selected point because I cannot paste this directly on top of the existing point. I need to apply a very small offset so the program recognizes it as its own point and I don't have any coincidental nodes. So I'll apply a small offset in the DY direction of 0.003 feet. And I'll click OK. So this produces a copy of that selected section of piping. You could tell this happened because now if I look at my node points, they're blurred. I have two node points basically right on top of each other. And so we then want to make some changes to our jacketed pipe to make it larger than our carrier pipe. So I'm going to do this using my input grid. You can get to your input grid from the Home ribbon tab under the View grouping, or from the View ribbon tab in the Grid grouping. You can select Control-W on your keyboard, or I've added my input grid to my Quick Access toolbar on the top left, which you can modify and add buttons to from this pull-down menu. So whichever way, let's get the input grid open. If you have a second screen, it's useful to keep the input grid open. With me sharing just one screen, you'll see me close it out and open it back up throughout the class. On the segment tab of my input grid, notice the line number for carrier B and C was just copied over to D and E, but those will be my jacket pipes. So I'm going to change the line number to jacket D and jacket E. Now that my line numbers are changed, I just want to work with my jacket piping to increase the size of the pipe. So I'm going to actually use this show column a lot to hide and show different portions of the piping throughout modeling here. I'm going to uncheck the show checkbox for segments B and C, so I'm just focused on my jacket piping. And I'm going to select the segment E, the header pipe, by selecting the row for segment E. Then I'll come up to the Modify Ribbon tab, and under Properties, I'm going to select Pipe Properties over Range. So currently this jacket pipe has the 6-inch carrier pipe properties over most of it, and then a reducer to the 4-inch carrier pipe properties. We actually want this to be an 8-inch jacket pipe, and we've already defined the 8-inch jacket piping in this model. So we just have to pull down the option there and select Jacket 8. You see the note that says previously defined pipe data will be used, and that's fine, so we'll click OK. And we have another note that says the specified pipe range overlies a valve or flange, so to check the properties. And we're actually going to delete those flanges on this pipe, so we can just accept that and click OK. So you see the pipe size changes, and now it's an 8-inch pipe. We want to do the same thing with segment D. So select segment D from the input grid. Again, modify pipe properties over range. And this time we're changing this 3-inch carrier pipe, we're changing it to a 4-inch jacket pipe. So pull down the pipe identifier menu and select Jacket 4. And you'll see the same two notes that pop up, so you can click OK and OK. So keep in mind that the specific gravity of the jacket pipe would need to be adjusted to account for the volume of the carrier pipe that already includes the contents and the metal volume. So in this example, we're assuming crude oil is in our jacket piping, which has a specific gravity of 0.876, but we have to adjust the specific gravity for the carrier piping being inside of the jacket as well. So if you look at our Pipe Properties tab for our jacketed piping and you scroll over to the specific gravity, you'll notice that our specific gravity is 0.272 and 0.214 rather than the 0.876 for crude oil. And that's because it has been adjusted. The adjustment calculations are on page 7 of the workbook, so you can review that to understand a bit more about the inputs for our specific gravity for our jacket. The next thing we're going to do is delete these flanges from our jacket piping. The flanges that are connected to our valves on our carrier piping are still there, but when we made this copy, we actually copied over this flanges, and we want to delete this copy of flanges. So I'm going to close out my input grid, and I'll select my flanges of the jacket piping by selecting my Select menu. And before selecting my flanges, I want to clear my selection. So on the Select Ribbon tab, under Selection, I want to click Clear. And then on the Select Ribbon tab, under Piping Components, I'll select Flanges. You should see all 3 flanges are selected, and it will only select the flanges that are currently showing on the plot area. Then I can delete my flanges by either hitting Delete on my keyboard or by coming to the Delete Ribbon tab under Piping Components, selecting Flanges. And I can say Yes. So you should see all 3 of those flanges disappear. Another component that I have to delete is the copy of the reducer that was made over from E7 to E8. This was a reducer on our carrier pipe, and when we copied and pasted, we actually copied this reducer component, even though we made all of this piping an 8-inch pipe. So you can see the different color here, and what we can delete to delete that reducer component, we want to select point E8 as our active point. And if you do have trouble selecting that, you can come up to the Select Ribbon tab, and under Selection, click Point. And down in the bottom left corner on the command line, you can type in E8 and click OK. With that selected, you can come over to the Delete Ribbon tab. Under Piping Components, select Point. Or you could have selected Delete on your keyboard and click Yes. And you see that piping is still there, but the component of the reducer is now deleted. It didn't make sense to have the reducer because we weren't changing pipe sizes.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.